the Second Amendment. Very interesting that right after those very fundamental personal rights that are guaranteed to us in the First Amendment, our founding fathers added the Second Amendment, which has also historically been viewed as an individual right. And that is the right for each citizen to keep and bear arms. And of course that has been defined throughout our history as firearms. And as you can see, we have up here rifles, pistols. A few years back, there was a major Supreme Court case, and it's been written in red to grab your attention. It is simply known as the Heller case, and I won't go into a lot of detail, but the Heller case basically was a court case that the Supreme Court of the United States, in a ruling 5-4, so it was a very close case, that the Second Amendment is in fact an individual right. That you and I, as free citizens, have the right to keep and bear arms for our own self-defense and for the defense of the country, and for whatever other reason that's lawful. Hunting, target shooting, sheer enjoyment of having rifles and pistols. You see thousands of people exercise that right every day at shooting ranges, out in the mountains, hunting big game. And the primary reason, though, for the Second Amendment is to protect you, your property, your home, your loved ones, from someone who would do you harm, whether that is an individual wanting to do you harm or the government wanting to do you harm. The Third Amendment is a direct response to what was happening in the colonies prior to the Revolution. In the colonies prior to the Revolution, the British government forced colonists to house British troops in the colonies, meaning that a British officer or British soldiers would come and live in your home. You'd be responsible to feed them, to do their laundry, to take care of, do mending their clothes, to basically provide for them while they were in the colonies. And many colonists hated that rule that the British imposed upon them. And so the Third Amendment basically says that there would be no private housing of military personnel in time of peace. In other words, you and I do not have to put the Marines in our house and feed them or do their laundry, shine their boots. In time of peace, they are to be housed on military bases and not in private people's homes. Now, there are some examples where that law can be undone. The prime example that we talked about in class is during the Civil War, where the military came and took over people's houses. If, in fact, we were invaded and the military needed to use public transportation or even private people's homes, then that would become a different story. But in time of peace, we as civilians do not have to provide for the care and upkeep of military soldiers. The Fourth Amendment then comes to individual rights of privacy. And you have the right to privacy in, as the Constitution says, in your person and in your homes, in your bags, your wallets, those things that you carry with you, you have the right to be left alone and to have privacy. The part of this, how it plays out in real life, is that you and I are free from unreasonable searches and seizures. They are not allowed. The government cannot come into your home and investigate your home without probable cause, without a warrant. They can't check your backpacks, your pockets, your cars. Your property is yours, and you have a right to keep that private. In order to come in and encroach into your privacy, a law enforcement officer would have to establish probable cause that something illegal has happened. He has to provide that to a judge, and the judge then will determine probable cause based on the law enforcement's oath and affirmation to get what is called a warrant, which would then entitle them to come and breach your privacy. Oath and affirmation basically means that the law enforcement officer would have to demonstrate that something bad or illegal has happened. There is enough evidence to search further, and then the judge would either okay that or say, no, you need more. In order to get a warrant, the Constitution is very clear. Law enforcement has to specifically state what exactly that the law enforcement officer will be looking for and searching for. In other words, if they come into your home, that warrant will specify what exactly they're looking for. They can't just come in and start tearing everything apart and then say, oh, look, we found something. The judge would have to know that ahead of time before issuing a warrant. The Fifth Amendment has four major parts. The first one is military action and service is protected. If you go and represent your country in battle as a military officer, you cannot be tried in a court of law. In other words, if you are in the Marines and you're in Afghanistan and you start shooting back at bad guys and you kill some, or you are a pilot and you drop a bomb and you blow up a village, those are not criminal activities. You are protected because you are serving your country. The second part of the Fifth Amendment is also a very big protection to you and I. If we are accused of a crime and we go through the process and we are tried through a court of law and we are found innocent, okay, or not guilty would be the better term, we can never be tried for that crime again. The government gets one opportunity to prove that you were guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. If they cannot do that, because you're innocent until proven guilty, if they cannot prove it one time, then you can never be tried for that crime again. That is known as double jeopardy. You have the right to remain silent. That is the third right in the Fifth Amendment. You have no obligation to talk to the law enforcement. If you are detained, if you're arrested, you have the right to remain silent. You do not have to talk to them at all. As a matter of fact, that is such an important right that when police officers arrest someone, they are to quote them their Miranda rights, which is the very first thing they're going to tell you, that you have the right to remain silent. And the last one is, if the government decides that they have to take private property for a common good, they cannot deprive a private property owner of that property without just compensation. They have to pay for the property if they take it. So for example, we talked about in class how the middle school and where the elementary school is, those used to be great big fields, and farmers were using those fields. But the school district said we need that property for the greater good of building new schools for our students, and then they had to pay the landowner for that property.